All rise.
Mr. Ng, continuing in the matter of...
I'll just sit down.
Yes, you may be seated, Mr. Ng. Continuing in the matter of the people versus Disney Lucasfilm for the murder of the Star Wars franchise. Today we are hearing arguments for the final count in this case. This is count 9. Mr. Ng, could you please read the count for us? Did you need me to share screen?
Yeah, you want to share the screen.
I will share screen with the charges. Here they are. 9 total counts in the Star Wars fandom versus Disney Lucasfilm. We are currently on the final count in this very serious matter. Let me scroll down to that count. And Mr. Ng, if you would read this for the court.
Yes. Count number 9. The Film Threat jury, in the name and behalf of the citizens of the fandom of Star Wars, charged and accused Lucasfilm Disney with the offense of conspiring with and maliciously hiring activists. On or about the 30th day of October 2012, Lucasfilm Disney did conspire with and maliciously hire activists to promote a certain political agenda within the Star Wars franchise, which resulted in the subversion of the established Star Wars mythos and the alienation of fans who did not share those particular political views. Your Honor, you're muted.
Joining us today is our court sketch artist, Mr. Todd Blackwood. You can go to blackwoodpdx.com or go to his Instagram at blackwood_PDX if you would like to see his work today and for previous days in this trial. Thank you, Mr. Blackwood, for your excellent attendance record. Standing in contrast with Mr. Ng, who has missed court, I believe twice now, Mr. Ng, if I'm correct.
I believe it was only one time.
One time, I'll let it slide, Mr. Ng. Today, we are discussing this count number 9. And joining us on the prosecution side, Mr. Andrew from Legal Mindset.
It is a pleasure, Your Honor. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you. It's exciting to have a real attorney here for a fake trial.
Yes. And subject to the procedural rules for real attorneys, I have forfeited my tie, and I am only half intoxicated, Your Honor. Last time I was fully intoxicated. This time I am only half intoxicated, as per our local procedural rules. So everything is squared away.
That works. Looks like you're ready for happy hour. Joining
Very
us
much
also, very familiar with the insides of a courtroom, Mr. Gary Beekler from Nerdrotic is here.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to submit a plea of not guilty. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm the prosecutor not being prosecuted. My apologies, Your Honor. I've been in a courtroom.
My understanding, Mr. Beekler, is you've spent more time in a courtroom than Nick Rekieta.
I have.
Well,
not hard.
Well, it's good to see you, sir. Good to see you. Joining us for the defense, Sam is here.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Ozark and Willie the Monkey King on the defense. And today we have a surprise witness. This witness may be used by either the prosecution or the defense. And while this witness could be considered an impersonator, we are using AI and ChatGPT. This is how George Lucas would actually respond were he asked many of the questions that will be put forth here today. Mr. Lucas.
Mr. Lucas?
Yes.
Your Honor, yes. Hello.
Yes. Hello, Mr.
That wasn't a chat GPT response. That was just mine.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Mr. Lucas. Again, the prosecution and the defense may use Mr. Lucas in any way they see fit to back up an argument or even as a hostile witness. So thank you, Mr. Lucas, for your attendance today in court.
You're quite welcome, Your Honor.
I will need to swear you in.
If you
Do
must.
do you swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth? So help you, George? Or excuse me, so help you, you?
So help me, George W. Lucas, Jr.
Excellent. All right. Well, then, now that we've all been introduced, court is now in session. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance today. I want to remind the jury to keep an open mind based on all of these arguments. At the very end of today's proceedings, you will have the opportunity to vote and determine who made the better argument today, the prosecution or the defense. Kicking things off will be the prosecution, who will have an opportunity to present their case. There'll be an opportunity for the defense to cross-examine, and then the defense will present their counter argument, also time for cross-examination, and then ending with open debate. My understanding is Mr. Beekler may have to leave early for another court case that apparently he's entangled in. And
Always entangled.
yes, Mr. Beekler, please let us know, give us fair warning for when you will have to exit today's court proceedings. On the prosecution, who would like to go first?
Since Mr. Beekler has limited time, I feel like I should cede the floor.
All right. There you are, Mr. Beekler. You have the floor.
All right. We are talking about activism in Disney Star Wars. Now, I would like to acknowledge that I'm not going to call it Star Wars anymore. That is dead naming it. It no longer exists. It died when George Lucas sold it to Disney. Little did we know how much damage a company can do to an intellectual property that we all loved and adored as children, that defined a lot of our nerddom throughout the years. It was our Beatles, Star Wars, and Disney has slowly and methodically murdered it through activism, including, but not limited to, canceling the EU, getting rid of LucasArts, and announcing that the Force was female, which is such an idiotic thing to do when you can just not say anything. And that was Kathleen Kennedy keeping a promise. Yes, Kathleen Kennedy was handpicked by George Lucas, and she is a Judas. She is absolutely a Judas. So we heard the Force is female. Then they started instituting their activism through the Lucasfilm Story Group and their marketing department. While Lucasfilm did not, or Disney did not develop fan baiting marketing, they perfected it and made an enemy out of half of their fandom, which is now most of their fandom. taking what Ghostbusters 2016 started and absolutely running with it. Poisoning creative decisions. How could you not put Han, Luke, and Leia in a scene together? How could you make Han Solo a bad father who walks into a lightsaber? How can you make Han Solo's son an idiot? How can you kill and make Princess Leia an idiot? How do you make Luke Skywalker a sad old man? These are activist decisions that poison creativity. These are not subversions of expectations. These are diminishing the classic characters to try to prop up your new characters, something you didn't need to do. We were interested when Disney purchased Star Wars. We thought, hey, it's a pretty good idea. Kathleen Kennedy sounds good. She's got a good pedigree. 10 years later, what have we got? Star Wars has an expiration date, and now it is simply a category on a diminishing streaming service that has lost millions of subscribers and billions of dollars to the tune of $4 billion. I would say that's not a success. Diminishing returns in the movies to the point where we haven't seen a Star Wars movie since the fall of Skywalker or Rise of Palpatine, whatever you want to call it. And their most recent installment, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Dysentery, is the biggest flop in the company's history, all overseen by the criminal Kathleen Kennedy. Bad Robot, who was in the employ of Lucasfilm while our country was burning during the Summer of Love, decided to come out with this. And I will present it to you. This is via Bounding in the Comics. This is one of the worst crimes. Absolutely worst crimes. Let me see here. Sorry, I wasn't prepared for this. I'm known for my preparation, ladies and gentlemen. Here are my extensive notes, by the way. And yes, it does say shit's fucked up on this top. And it says, enough is enough. Enough police brutality. Enough outside privileged. Enough polite conversation. Enough white comfort. Who in the hell says that? Who's selling movies? Could you imagine a hot dog salesman saying that? Star Wars is what brought us together. Fandom is what brought us together, despite what our political differences were. As you may know, I owned a comic shop for 10 years in San Francisco. My one rule, well, two rules: you can't use the bathroom and no politics. And people who are on the right and the left sat there and laughed and had a good time because they were talking about the mutual things they loved, like Star Wars. And this divides not only fandom, the country. While the country was burning, asshole Jar Jar Abrams decides to come out and divide the country more, fan the flames of division. And it's a disgusting act. We have more. We have so much more. I'm not going to be able to get to all of it now, not necessarily in this order. We also have Rewriting Ripley. Rewriting Ripley is a blog on Medium, which most people wouldn't have noticed if Pablo Hidalgo, a member of Lucasfilm, a Lucasfilm executive, decided to signal boost them. This article, which we won't go over, I'll just summarize it for you. It was about our good friend Ryan Kinnell, Esquire, who was on this very trial a couple of weeks ago. And oh, whoops, did I share? There we go. And they wrote this in plain sight. Sorry, I shared the wrong one. Damn it, I boomered it. They tried to present our good friend Ryan Kinnell as this innocent little lad that we lured down the alt-right pipeline. And we are using Star Wars to fan the flames of hate. And we are taking our orders from the ghost of Rush Limbaugh somehow and Steve Bannon. In plain sight, how white supremacy, misogyny, and hate targeted the Star Wars sequel trilogy and won. Now, the authors of this article, one of them had an affiliation to Star Wars. And again, it was signal boost by members of Lucasfilm. And it goes down a bit. It just hits some, it says hate right there. And it goes on to say that the Ryan was this innocent lad that we all radicalized. And we're doing it to what end? I'm not sure. Their point of view is white supremacy. This is how activism poisons fandom. Sure, science fiction has always had allegorical morality tales. That is not political. That's a morality tale. It's good and bad, but we don't know what good, or Hollywood doesn't know what good and bad is anymore. Being heroic, being masculine is bad. It's evil. That's why you come out and say the Force is female and all of a sudden piss off, well, a lot of dudes and a lot of women. That's not really how you sell a product. I go to Data Racer. Let's go to Data Racer's tweet, which shows Pablo Hidalgo. Pablo, good friend Data Racer, by the way. Following and signal boosting rewriting Ripley, which was an assault on the fandom. And he says, Lucasfilm executive Pablo Hidalgo started following rewriting Ripley after she launched this mass flag attacks. Pablo has followed multiple SJWs trying to destroy the fandom menace. How much involvement does Lucasfilm have in these efforts and silence their critics? Well, apparently it's a lot. It's quite a bit. They have developed a thing that is now known as fan baiting. And this is a thing. And these instructions come straight from the top. Things get leaked to the Access media, including when The Last Jedi fervor was going on, that it was Russian bots, it was review bombers, it was racist fans, white supremacist fans, because we all know white supremacists are just huge fans of things like Star Trek and Star Wars. And they tried to paint paying customers, people who have loved George Lucas's creations their entire lives, as racists and Nazis. And I have never heard a single word from Disney defending the fans. Oh, we've had car videos defending Moses Ingram from Ewan McGregor, but we've never heard a peep. We never heard a peep defending Gina Carano. Gina Carano, who was fired over her political views, was fired from people within Lucasfilm who started a movement to get her fired over not... I know the post that everybody talks about, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. What really pissed Lucasfilm off was beep, bop, boop, refusing to put her pronouns in her bio. Now, you would say that's Gina being an activist. Yes. All I ask for is consistency. If Pedro Pascal can call half the country Nazis, I think it's okay for Gina Carano not to put pronouns in her bio. But we don't see a consistency because there isn't one. There is a political bias. There is political bigotry. And that's exactly what it is. And that's why they fired Gina Carano. I wish I could tell you more. But go to her interview. Remember, they wanted her to go through a 40-person Zoom meeting struggle session. That is activism. That is not creativity. It was not a smart move to take one of the more popular characters from your flagship show on your streaming service and fire her just when you got... That was the one thing that turned things around. Everybody hated Rise of Skywalker. Everybody did. But The Mandalorian saved Kathleen Kennedy's job, and she immediately screws it up within a couple of months. She doesn't deserve her position. She's only gotten it because of privilege, the privilege of working with Steven Spielberg, the privilege of knowing George Lucas. Based on her merit, based on what we've seen over the last 10 years, it's been an absolute disaster. But the activism doesn't end there. We go on to Kathleen Kennedy keeps her promise. The Force is female. And now it is. Now Star Wars is female. It's called Star Hers now. We just saw the Ahsoka trailer. There was a guy in it, but he's a bad guy. I wish I had a time to prepare the list of girl bosses that are in Disney Star Wars on D+. And notice, if Ahsoka is so popular, why the hell aren't they making a movie? Why are they dumping it on Disney+? Well, because we know it's going to be more of the same. She hired Leslie Headland, former Harvey Weinstein assistant Leslie Headland, who led the lambs to the slaughter, but somehow she has the right politics. She can keep her job when Gina Carano can't. She gets a whole series when her favorite Star Wars is all the Star Wars. All the Star Wars, which doesn't exist anymore because it's dead. I think that will be enough. I could go on. How many times we've been attacked as content creators. Fans have been attacked. We could go on with the diminishing returns. And while A lot of this is circumstantial, and I wish I could tell you so much more about what I actually know from inside the hive of scum and villainy that is Lucasfilm. The one thing I do know is that the farce is female, and Kathleen Kennedy needs to be fired.
Thank you, Mr. Beekler, for your impassioned argument. Mr. Mindset, if you have more to add, we'd love to hear your argument.
Yes, for my opening statement, I would like to first attract people to Disney as a larger, broader corporation. If we may just start with the basic structure of the rat, which is really the host of all the scum and villainy in the corporate world nowadays. Understand that Disney as a whole has been pushing a very, very, very specific agenda. And that agenda, as Mr. Beekler said, my co-counsel here, is anti-masculine. So this is at the core of everything within the entire corporate structure, with Lucas as no exception to this. And specifically cite Kathleen Kennedy. She has said, we owe nothing to you as men. Nothing to you as men. And care not for any of your objections to what we are doing with this franchise and with this company. And to be very clear, it is not just about the Force is female. Oh, no, 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 no. It goes so much further than that. See, if it was just pushing men out and letting a few women in, okay, maybe we could deal with that. But no, 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 no. It is the entire demolishment of masculinity and the replacement with the rainbow agenda. And to be very specific, this has been brought up by Lucasfilm on several occasions at a corporate level. Let me turn your attention to the DEI commitment of Lucasfilm, which was posted by Lucasfilm roughly about, I think, a year ago. They've got a commitment that's more than just words. It's intention, it's social responsibility, it's action to create an inclusive environment of intersectionality. That means Marxism, by the way, in case you don't know. Diversity. And so they're partnering with the large LGBT communities. And on top of that, if you go back to this fight, you see that all of this fight between Disney and Florida, stuff that I've personally been involved with for quite a long time, they went to watch The Last Jedi. They used The Last Jedi as a symbol for queer power in the midst of a faux fight with Florida over a law they do not understand. And this, as my co-counsel said, starts with the top. And the top is Kathleen Kennedy and Bob Iger. A devil's twosome, if you will, in their war on masculinity. And if you look at all of the characters in Star Wars, I would ask the defense, in their long time of simp studies, which is where I believe they received their degrees, if they can find one true masculine, non-robot, non-villain character in all of the new Star Wars, and I will tell you, if not, they are without a doubt guilty. I rest for now, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Mindset. Now we have an opportunity for cross-examination from the defense. Any questions for Mr. Mindset and Mr. Nerdrotic Beekler? Mr. Beekler, also Nerdrotic. Sorry, I boomered that. Yes, Mr. Ozark.
Mr.
Please,
Mindset,
may begin.
I felt like although we understand that Solo did lose money, I felt like the character that Woody Harrelson played in Solo was a good character. It was a Star Wars centric character that I felt belonged in the universe and wasn't compromised in any masculine way. So that's just my example, but I felt like his argument was very strong. So
what was that? Was that a main character in that series?
Oh, did you say main character?
No. Did he have any significant role in the overarching plot?
I would say that Woody Harrelson's character is he shepherds Han Solo.
Can you name his character?
I myself, I've seen the
Yes,
film
exactly.
twice. I can't name
Therefore,
his
if you cannot name his character and you cannot give me his full
You
name
said
and
present a
backstory,
character.
he is not a main character, sir. He is a side character. He is a little Tiffins.
I would not,
to be
Your
pushed
Honor,
off.
I would not.
To be pushed off into the slums of Maliciously with the garbage.
Your Honor, I would like to, for the record, I do not think if that I suggest that the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if they have time, go back and watch Solo and watch that character. Ask yourself, is the Woody Harrelson character, which I'm very sorry I can't remember his name, is he a side character? Is he a simp? And is he woke? I don't believe so. I rest my small case right there. Thank you.
I have a question for Mr. Beekler. A couple questions, actually. So you said that allegorical morality is not political. Correct? Am I phrasing your side of the statement correctly?
I said yes.
Okay. So it's good versus bad, correct?
In Star Wars, yes.
Okay. So I guess what did the good side and what did the bad side? How did George Lucas come up with that? Was there any inspiration from that?
Oh, certainly. World War II, Vietnam War.
Okay. So those
The
inspirations.
Ewoks were supposed to be the Viet Cong.
Okay. So those inspirations, even though they are heavily based in political, because what those wars were fought over were political battles of different ideologies and different political structures, because they told a story about it, it makes it not political. Is that what you're saying?
I would say if something inspires a story, it doesn't make it inherently political, the story itself. No, it's basically a story of good and evil. We can all agree that the Nazis were evil. We can certainly agree with that. That is definitely that there's no shades of gray on that one. As far as what the rebels are, I would dare you, outside of what George has said outside of his movie, when you just watch the movie and walk out of the movie specifically, what specific political statement do you see other than evil bad?
Okay. And moving on to the next point, you talked about fan baiting. And I guess my question is, you've been around the block a lot longer than I have. Do you remember the days when they would put cartoon characters on cigarettes?
I ain't that old, but I know, I'm aware it happened.
Okay. So we can all agree that bad marketing has been around since the dawn of time.
Oh, certainly.
So I guess why do you act like it's so malicious rather than just a dumb marketing team?
Because it is malicious. It is absolutely malicious because what you're doing, and I'll use their terms, you are othering members of the fandom. You are saying they don't count. We don't even consider you human enough to market to you because now everything is far right, and the far right are inhuman and they're Nazis and they don't deserve our product. So we're not going to even consider you as a fan. And they don't consider the unintentional consequences because they don't care. They don't care because they think they are so right in their point of view.
If I may bolster my co-counsel's argument for one moment here, Sam, if that is your legal name, what is so wrong about taking us back to Jabba's palace? Why can we not have our dancing Twi'leks and our cocaine body Carrie Fishers? What is so wrong with that? Name one voluptuous, attractive vixen. And why is it so wrong that we cannot have a little bit of TNA for our R&R?
Well, here at Lucasfilm, we
Are a
love
bunch
diversity.
of cuck
And-
simps. Yes, I rest my case. Let me defer back to my co-counsel.
If I may, just to add to my defense's argument, what you could construe as technically wrong is you're basically objectifying. You're objectifying the Twi'lek. I have trouble. I always had trouble pronouncing it.
Yes,
The Twi'lek.
guilty.
Yeah, what is the right way? I believe you're appropriating the name of the race right now. I think that's against your corporate policy, actually.
No, my point is that you ask what is wrong with having with sexualizing people of in the Star Wars universe, and what I'm saying, my question is to you is that what is wrong with trying to not objectify other people of the cast or other people in the cast.
That's what you've been doing for a decade, and it sucked, and nobody likes it.
Well, the thing is, if I might add to Legal Mindset, there was some objectification of Kylo Ren.
Correct.
Old man pants on. He had no shirt on. So it's still happening with the introduction of all the alphabet love that's going on in Star Wars right now. That is still sexualizing content. We're just removing one part of it. We're seeing the inconsistency. That, my friends, is agenda.
Will, let me jump in and bolster the defense argument for a moment. I think sometimes too, what is your definition of sexy? And I enjoy bare skin like a normal healthy man, and have so. But I will say that, Gary, when I think of one of my favorite moments in the original trilogy with Princess Leia, one of the sexiest moments where you get to really see who she is when she takes the bounty hunter helmet off and her hair is kind of messed up, and she sees Han Solo in carbonite. It has nothing to do with her body, it has nothing to do with seeing skin. And I think that, yes, it is true. We did miss a slave Leia moment in the new trilogy. They could have done it with Rey. They could have fit it in there if they wanted to. But I think that there is kind of a nuance to your audience. Your audience is kind of a wider audience, and they sometimes we've kind of cheapened the idea of sexuality in the United States just a bit. And so that's just my thought.
So are you trying to say that this is an appeal to conservatism? That Rey's lack of sexuality, the inclusion of Rose Tico, an obese woman in the series, the least bought merchandise ever, is that appealing to anybody? And by the way, is that an accurate representation of Asians? Is that an accurate representation of the majority of the Asian population? Or is it a racist trope that's being pushed because fatness is left and fitness is far right?
My original point had more to do with the nuance of sexuality, but I agree that I will say this, that Rose Tico is simply just a miscalculation of what they think is popular.
No, I think it was entirely calculated. I think it was entirely calculated because that's what they want to sexualize.
They wanted Rose Tico to be successful. It's not like they intended her.
Well, yes, they must have, because Kelly Marie Tran is a very attractive woman, and they made her as unattractive as possible. That is,
I agree.
That's a creative decision, really.
This is a bad decision.
A very good one. Yeah, it's a bad decision.
It's a trend. I will say this from my background in art and the creative world, that trends take hold in Hollywood. Trends take hold in backstage and with people, and they get on one thing and they do it to death. And so it's an unfortunate portrayal of that character that Rose Tico apparently could be more attractive in certain ways. So yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you there.
Mr. Ozark, Mr. Ozark, just a moment here. I think you're spiraling down a path I cannot go. You're waxing poetic about the female characters and their level of sexiness from Carrie Fisher's bedroom hair. She removed her helmet. Please, sir. You please stick to the core debate. I also want to remind both the prosecution and the defense that we do have a Mr. George Lucas impersonator here today to respond to any questions you may have about his intentions or his thoughts. So,
Your Honor, if I may,
I'll leave it at that.
If I may pose some initial questions, Mr. Lucas. Mr. Lucas.
Yes.
Thank you for coming today. Mr. Lucas, have you had a chance to view the series of motion pictures, moving pictures, if you will, that have followed your original trilogy and prequel trilogy in the Star Wars series?
I was invited to all the premieres, so yes, I've sat through them.
And in your assessment as a person who was involved with this project initially, what did you think upon viewing of all three of those motion pictures?
Look, it's just as hard to make a bad movie as it is to make a good movie. So I think they did everything to their own abilities, much like Jedi do when they use the Force.
Are you saying they use the Force to the dark side or to the light side, Mr. Lucas?
I don't think I can classify it one way or another. I mean, obviously, people like different things, and let me just say that I've only watched them once.
Mr. Lucas, please let's stay on target here. What I am saying is, did you enjoy these films, Mr. Lucas?
I hardly even enjoy my own films, so I don't enjoy them or unenjoy them. They are it, and they are out of my hands. I got $4.3 billion to not care about it.
That is a very good incentive. I think we would all not care with $4.3 billion. Let me ask you this, Mr. Lucas. Did you know that Kathleen Kennedy was going to lead with an aggressive political agenda upon seizing control of your empire?
Well, I had no idea what she was going to do. I got an inkling when my story ideas were tossed to the curb. But as I said,
hold on, right there. No, hold on, sir. What story ideas were tossed to the curb?
I had some ideas for how the sequel trilogy should have gone. I'm not going to go into that because I'm usually paid for those ideas.
Hold on. No, that we can try to go. Let me go with what was put out there to not ruin your IP, George. In your trilogy series, was there a love affair between the Skywalkers and Palpatines?
No. I mean, that's just that's just funny.
Let's continue. We have one from the galley, and normally we disregard the galley, but today this is a particularly relevant question. Mara Jade, are you familiar with the expanded universe character of Mara Jade?
Yeah, that was a character that became Luke's love interest after the original trilogy.
One might say she was the love interest.
Well, sure.
Perhaps a spicy love interest.
I have no knowledge either way about that.
Okay, that's fair enough. Fair enough. Would you have included her in your sequel trilogy?
Well, I actually wouldn't have included anything from the extended universe characters because I had my own ideas, and those were generated by other people. And it was fine at the time because we were trying to make some money in between movies. But I would have preferred to go off on my own.
One last question: would your Luke Skywalker have sipped on blue milk from a space manatee titty?
Well, if the opportunity presented itself, I'm sure he would have. But I had other things for him to do.
No further questions.
And there were 6 opportunities in that film, if I remember correctly.
I'm trying to forget that part.
I need to ask now. Any further questions from the defense on cross-examination of the prosecutors here?
Yes,
Sam.
Go ahead, Sam.
I was just the conversation that me and Mr. Beekler had. Let's ask that same question to Mr. Lucas. The politics. Did that have any inspiration when you were creating the original trilogy?
Well, obviously, because the project that I was working on previously to Star Wars was Apocalypse Now, the project that would later become Apocalypse Now. And I was fascinated by the idea that this lower technology society was capable of beating the more advanced technology. And that sort of made its way into a story about the Wookiees battling the Empire. And of course, that literally morphed into the Ewoks battling the Empire. So yes, there was inspiration, but it's not necessarily a direct correlation. It's not, I wanted to keep it simple for children and others to understand, a very simple good versus evil story. And I think that's plenty for people to enjoy and take in.
Awesome. Enough said. Thank you.
All right. Any further questions on cross-examine before we hear from the jury, and then the defense may present its case? I know, Mr. Nerdrotic, you're short on time, so please keep me informed.
I will keep you informed. I on what is it, Tobias? Woody Harrelson's character in Solo, a movie I unfortunately saw that did hashtag lose money. Solo lost money. As far as him being a positive masculine character in Disney Star Wars, he ended up being duplicitous. That is another one of the tropes that you would see in Disney Star Wars. There, the men will be ineffectual. They'll be duplicitous. They'll be betas, or they'll be sad and old. That's pretty much just a constant cycle that we see through Disney Star Wars. So I wouldn't say that was a really good character in a Solo movie where he ends up being led around by yet another brunette English woman.
As my co-counsel said, the defense really ignored the call of my question there by saying that the characters that are non-villains are not positive masculine figures. He would be interpreted as a villain.
He's an anti-hero, I guess. It's kind of a gray area, but okay, that's fine.
Except for the betrayal at the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we've spent quite a bit of time on cross-examination. We're going to briefly hear from the jury. That is, all the viewers here are part of the jury, and I'm going to read their feedback and quick comments and questions before we move to the defense's argument. So here we are. We're also on Rumble and apparently Kick, from what I understand. I don't know.
No, we are not on Kick right now.
We are not on Kick.
Yeah, still working on that.
Feeling Dangerous 113 gifted 5 Film Threat memberships. Well, thank you so much for that. David March gifted 20 Film Threat memberships. Thank you so much, David. Die Dinks for £5. Great idea. Really well done. T-Cliz became a new YouTube member. Thank you for that. If you do become a member today, you can be part of the jury deliberations, which will be recorded. My understanding is it's either Sunday or Monday. We are recording jury deliberations. We will be bringing on members of the jury to discuss amongst yourselves and with myself and Mr. Ng. So thank you for becoming a member. Bo and Debbie Mulder for 5. Despite knowing that her female-centric anti-male version of Star Wars has chased away millions of fans, Kathleen Kennedy's agenda remains. She just doesn't care. Gordon Kavanaugh, who has actually been on the defense for $13.99. Thank you for that. Watching from Krakow. Critics Court is a great chance to challenge beliefs. Beliefs that go unchallenged become convictions, and unchallenged convictions become ideology. With love, Dr. Gordo, PhD. Thank you for that, Dr. Gordo. Mexican Iron Man for 10. Your Honor, as it may please the court, upon a guilty verdict, Mexican Iron Bailiff is armed and ready to take Kathleen Kennedy, Lucasfilm, and co-conspirators into custody and place in solitary confinement for a long time. Well, thank you for that. Daniel for 2. If the bionic hand doesn't fit, disintegrate. I saw where you were going there. Gordon Kavanaugh, threat level 1, has been a member for 2 months and says, thanks to the good bailiff for watching the chat. Nathan Rodriguez for 5. Nerdrotic, right? Disney Star Wars is a zombie. As long as Kathleen Kennedy and her minions stay and Disney doesn't take action against them, Disney Star Wars is a zombie. And Gary Gonna Boomer says, Chef Nick Nero for $1.99. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Nazaro for €5.99. Hail Gary, killing it as usual. Just want Gary to know, not all Dems are stupid wokesters. Though millions of us disagree with your political views, we stand 1,000% behind you on Star Wars. From Bo and Debbie Mulder. Thank you. Jelani Wood for 5. Not mentioned enough. Kennedy is also married to one of the most powerful men in Hollywood, Frank Marshall. This also shields her as well. Interesting theory. Feeling Dangerous 113 for 2. No longer the mouse, it's the rat. I like it. Angry Yeti TV for 10. I'm about 15 minutes behind, but I'm at 1.5 speed, so I'll catch up. Just wanted to say, all hail Nerd Jesus, Gary. May he deliver us all from the evils and temptations of Disney. I'm totally unbiased, by the way. There you go. MK Solid 82 for 499. Judge Gore, 3 members of the jury have passed out because of Mr. Allening's Asian heat. What type of courtroom are you running here? Alan, any response?
I'm covering my nipples at the moment, but at any time they can be unleashed.
Well, there you go.
You bring honor to your family.
Thank you.
Tired Retro Gamer for 10. The Disney Empire has used AstroTurf quality politicking to try and get its way for a long time. Look into their activities around trying to build Westcott in Anaheim, California in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
Henry back to play for 999. Mr. Miyagi just came back as a Force Ghost and wanted me to relay this message. No Ken defense. Prosecution team just used the crane kick on the defense's nuts. Ouch. 200-watt studio for 5. Mr. Lucas, now that your hometown of Modesto has struck down the anti-cruising law, will you make a sequel to American Graffiti 3? Mr. Lucas?
I think that after these resounding success of more American Graffiti, I think we're all done with that.
Well, maybe you can sell it to Disney, and they can race and gender swap everybody.
It'd be fascinating to see, but I've gone down that road already, and I'm good.
Call it anti-American graffiti. Be really fun.
That's cute. I like that.
You like that?
Polysema for £5. Where's Izzy Beaver Crunch lock balls? All right, I'm not exactly sure. The Beaver Crunch, I think I know what you're talking about. Pirate Bob has become a YouTube member. Thank you for that. Nick S for 199. George, what are your thoughts on a crunchy bush? George?
I have no idea what this person's talking about.
I believe Mr. Ng explained it to me earlier that that's in reference to Karen Allen's outfit she wore on the ship when she was in a loose-fitting negligee.
Brought millions of boys through puberty in one moment. It was an amazing experience.
I mean, was that your intent when you were making Raiders Lost Ark with?
That was Steven's deal. I didn't. I'm fine with how it turned out, but that the boat by the name was called the Bantu Wind, so I don't think that has anything to do with the question at all. But look, I enjoyed a bunch of things in that film, and of course that was one of them.
And while we have you, out of curiosity, did you see the latest Indiana Jones film?
Again, I was brought to a screening and I was forced to watch it. So, yes, I've seen it. Certainly a lot of stuff in there.
Unknown for 199, Poop Emoji Clown Wars. And AJ Matheson for 10. George was going to incorporate the EU character Darth Talon, a sexy red Twi'lek, into his sequel trilogy to seduce one of the Solo children. Not PC enough for Disney. And one last comment here. Grimnack, threat level 1, has been a member for 1 month, says, well, how the turntables. Hail. Well, there you go. Thank you for that. If the defense is ready, we may begin your argument, or we may take a break and Mr. Beekler may exit. How would you like to proceed, Mr. Beekler?
I think we can go a little while. I got to give the defense their say.
All right. Then defense, you now have the floor. Please proceed with your argument and be prepared for cross-examination from the prosecution.
Yes, Your Honor. I'll be starting us off today. I'm going to share my screen. There it goes. All right. Is that... Yep, everyone can see it. Cool. All right. So we're going to be talking about Count 9 today. And here at LucasFilm, like I said, we admire diversity. We strive for diversity, not only in color and sex, but also in ideas. A diversity of ideas, one might say. So Star Wars has always been political. Okay? The time that the prequels came out, it was during the Clinton and Bush presidencies. The perfect example of a uniparty. no matter what the people voted for, they're going to get whatever the government was giving them, okay? Just like how democracy failed in the prequels. No matter what happened in the Senate, right? Palpatine rose to power and took over. I cannot think of a more perfect example of government corrupting to having one stink than these two men right here. Then we go on to the OT. This was obviously the empire was modeled after the Nazis, but their ideas and the way that they were structured was more like the communists. So we go back to the height of the Cold War when the OT was being put out. It was actually Ronald Reagan that said that the SSR was the evil empire. He said that in a speech. He referenced the SSR as the evil empire. The empire that had weapons that could destroy the world, nukes and Death Stars. It's the same, one and the same. It was an allegory for the nuclear power that at that time they didn't know if the nuclear bomb would rip the world apart or if it would just be a big bomb. So, and also think about how the stormtroopers, there's no identity to them. It's just one mass, one collective, one community. And now this brings us to the rebellion, right? Where the rebellion, that's the capitalism. That's the good guys. That's the guys that put forth and had a way that they built up by their sweat and pulled themselves up by their bootstraps, and they made their way and they conquered that evil beast of communism. And now we go to the heart of the matter, the sequel trilogy, Disney's trilogy. Now we know that if the rebellion was capitalism, which we know, right? We talk about modern day, and if I know anything from going to college and watching CNN, capitalism is bad. Capitalism doesn't work. Capitalism is evil. It's bad. It's bad for the people, and that's why it corrupted. Everyone wonders, is like, why did the rebellion fail? How did the New Order come to power? It's because capitalism fails, baby. Doesn't pay. Now, what is the savior in the trilogy? None other than Rey Skywalker. Socialism. Just like socialism and Rey Skywalker, they can do no wrong, right? And any failings or any bad parts, it just wasn't implemented right. Come on. Like, it only killed a little bit of people, plus they didn't do it right, right? Socialism is the key. Socialism is the answer. So, in the end, right, I'll stop sharing my screen for this because that's the basics of it. How do I, there we go. In the end, this whole idea that politics infested Star Wars, that's what it was based off of. It was always like that, okay? The only difference between now and then is we just don't agree with what side won, right? And Mr. Beekler set out in his defense that, or his prosecution, that it's obvious that the Nazis were the bad guys. Well, history is written by the victor, okay? That's a very important thing to understand. So in hypothetical land, if we were all socialists now, we'd understand and we'd look at Star Wars and be like, this is great, this is miraculous, right? And if things keep going their way in like 10 years, we will look back on it and we'll be like, we were so stupid. I don't want any personal property. I want Disney to give me everything I have. And we'll understand and we'll love the Disney trilogy. So everything has been politicized. Everything has. And now we just see it and we're more aggressive towards it and we repel it. We send it away. But Disney's always been political. The only difference is we just don't agree with what's on it. So once again, we can talk about how the storylines were bad, but you can't talk about the politicization of Star Wars when that's what it's based off of. Like I said, these charges just don't hold water. We need to thin them out, throw them away, and focus on what really ruined Star Wars, even though it still is alive today. But that's all I have, and I rest my case and turn it over to, I believe, Mr. Ozark.
Mr. Ozark, please present your argument. There you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Today, this charge is a symptom of looking for activism and seeing it around every corner. Using a similar litmus test, let's explore what might be perceived as messaging and activism in other popular franchises. Last night, in preparation for today, I viewed the second installment of the Mad Max series of films, The Road Warrior. This came out, this original trilogy came out similar to the Star Wars trilogy. The Road Warrior was set in post-apocalyptic Australia. We have to ask ourselves, because The Road Warrior demonstrates strong themes in the opening sequences of pro-environmentalism and anti-war warnings to the audience. So let's first ask this question. Is George Miller an activist or a filmmaker? Let's also consider, in 1981, the audience was very much aware that the world is essentially built in a house of cards, that an entire planet rigged with enough nuclear arsenal to destroy civilization instantly. When people went and saw the film The Road Warrior, they were very much aware that their real life world was somehow connected to the post-apocalyptic world of Mad Max, of The Road Warrior. So this was the filmmaker's attempt to connect his post-apocalyptic vision to the then current day events of the 1980s modern day. Given this context, does this make George Miller an anti-nuclear activist? How much should we actually apply this lens to other franchises like Mad Max? Is this a good use of our time and energy? This is a larger question, but I'd like to move on with my presentation. Let's look at another franchise, something similar in cultural impact and success. It came out in the 1970s, The Godfather. Let's talk about The Godfather for one moment. This is George Lucas's colleague, Mr. Lucas. He has worked with Francis Ford Coppola. He came out with a series of films that are an incredibly realistic depiction of organized crime and the violent gangster lifestyle, the culture that they live, and the protagonist in this case was Michael Corleone, a mobster. One could argue that Francis Ford Coppola glorified and romanticized mobsters and their violent lifestyle and culture. Do we then, using a similar litmus test and lens, do we proclaim that the filmmaker Coppola is he himself somehow pro-mafia? Here is your deeper path to understanding the origin and substance of the plaintiff's complaint, one that I argue has very little substance to it. I will continue just very briefly. Let me ask you some questions to the audience. You've seen Planet of the Apes, I'm sure, with Charlton Heston. Do you think Planet of the Apes is somehow anti-human? Do you think Rambo First Blood Part 2 was made by gun activists? How much did the director of Soylent Green really want to eat people? Is Darren Aronofsky's Requiem for a Dream somehow a pro-drug, pro-rape film? These are questions now that if we go down this path, we need to apply this to other films and other popular things. Is The Omega Man a good time with Charlton Heston, or is it somehow pro-vaccine Hollywood propaganda? So now I am sitting back looking at these things with a new lens, with a new attitude. And so I have to ask myself, is J.J. Abrams, is he really an activist, or is he just a wannabe Steven Spielberg for all of his flaws and all of his willing to play the woke game? Is Rian Johnson really an activist, or is he just a go-along bootlicker willing to do anything? Now I argue that does not an activist make. So, we go back to The Road Warrior, one of my favorite films. I love this film just like I love Star Wars. I think this is such a relevant film. It's a timeless film. And if you remember in this film, the lieutenant biker Wes, he doesn't have a girlfriend on the back of his motorcycle, does he? It's a dude. And I would like to conclude with this. Are we, the audience, supposed to focus on Wes's personal preferences during the Road Warrior sequence? I argue no. Does this enhance the story that we focus on the fact that he has a boyfriend, not a girlfriend, on the back of the motorcycle? Or does it simply add to the realism of a post-apocalyptic scenario where norms are radically rewritten during anarchy in the name of survival? So I feel these questions are perhaps not answerable now, but if you would have told me, in conclusion, if you would have told me back in 1999 that in a future Star Wars installment that two chicks make out, I would have high-fived you and not complained. But I understand that we live in a crazy, complicated world, and I sympathize with the plaintiffs. But as far as this charge 9, I believe it has no basis in this court, and I rest my case. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ozark. Who's next? Mr. Willie, the Monkey King?
Yes, sir.
Willie, the Monkey King. Please present your arguments.
Sure.
And then we move to cross-examination.
Yes, sir. I originally spent my research looking into whether the most divisive filmmakers were activists. But after reading what constitutes but I decided to go against that argument after reading what constitutes as an activist. According to the Activist Handbook website, one of the definitions of what an activist is by Brian Martin is that activism is action on behalf of a cause, action that goes beyond what is conventional or routine. So with that broad definition, unfortunately, you could make an argument that, yes, the filmmakers are activists. You could also make the argument that the members of the prosecution are also activists. So it's a very broad term. The real question is, who cares if Disney hired a bunch of activists? We can't hold up filmmakers like Spielberg, Lucas, or even Fincher as filmmakers who have messages in their films as paragons, but then censor lesser filmmakers like Rian Johnson just because we don't like their message. They should be allowed the freedom to make their films and TV shows with their viewpoints like any other creator. We as an audience are allowed not to pay for the ticket of the film or tune into the television show. However, the real problem isn't that they have woke messaging or that they're activists. The problem is simply that they are less skilled in writing or storytelling. The problem is that they are heavy-handed with their messaging, preaching to the audience. This doesn't necessarily make the films bad because taste is subjective. However, the problem with injecting messaging with preachy storytelling is that the response to this from the money people is to be anti-creative, is to not let the future Spielberg or the future Lucas be able to tell their stories with the messages that they want to express. And unlike storytellers like Johnson, are just better at telling. I rest my case.
Thank you, Mr. Monkey King. Now we have an opportunity for cross-examination. I just want to remind the prosecution that Mr. Lucas is here as a witness, may also be used in your counter argument. Please begin.
Mr. Buechler, I believe you're more limited on time. If you would care to
Alrighty.
line it up, I'll knock it down.
I'll line it up. You knock it down because I can barely read my notes here. So where do I start? Okay. There's political content. People are political. We've always known what side Hollywood is mostly on, political. And there's activism, bringing politics into the fandom and dividing fandom with their marketing and their storytelling, which Disney Star Wars is absolutely guilty of. And hey, that's, if you want to talk about Mad Max, and you went from it being an environmental message to an anti-nuclear war message. And I would say, well, I think everybody's against nuclear war. I'm pretty sure most people are against nuclear war. That makes it moral. I think that's a pretty objective moral thing. We all don't want to die and be vaporized by nuclear bombs, right? Can we all agree on that? I think we can all agree on that.
Speculation. There's
That's
war
not
hawks.
environmentalism.
So
that's
you're
being against nuclear war.
morality
I can't
is determined by the
explain. No, Gary,
majority.
I want to hear Gary. I want to hear Gary, but I can explain. Go ahead. Go ahead.
But the whole point of that is just because we're against one specific thing doesn't mean we're for the other thing. Do you understand what I'm saying? For politics, what happens with Disney Star Wars specifically is yours truly, Chris Gore, our judge, many others have been called alt-right. And not just by Access Media members, by people who work at Lucasfilm. That's specifically the activism I'm talking about. Throwing out that kind of hyperbolic bullshit that divides the fandom and automatically turns people off on their side and on whatever side that is. I'm not a Republican, by the way. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I am an independent, and I've always been my entire life. So that's where I come from. So whatever form of activism, I just give my opinions. I've never told anybody to not go see a movie, see whatever you like whatever you like. It's just my opinion. So when it comes to, hey, Mad Max and Road Warrior, awesome movies. But we can talk about Fury Road a little bit, which is, it's a good movie that definitely has messaging, feminism, feminist messaging in it. And that's pretty much what Disney Star Wars has become, intersectional feminism. Not even feminism, intersectional feminism. You're aware of the Bechdel test. I'm sure some people are aware of the Bechdel test. The cartoonist who created it did it as a joke. And now it is a Bible for Hollywood. So you can't have two women talking about a man. They have to be alone talking about something other than a man. That's just one of the things. Man, Disney really does that. The problem is that hampers storytelling. Right? You can have two dudes talking about a woman all day long, but you can't have two women talking about a man. That's just one example. Intersectional feminism is the force is female. That is activism. That is divisive. When you could just say the force is the force. I mean, Metachlorians was bad enough, George, but now it's the force is female. That's one. When we get to politics and activism, specifically, I always look for a balance in Hollywood. That's why I never had a problem with it before. I knew like one thing will be one side will be the other. That's fine. But as a whole, as Disney, as a company, as a whole, as it is right now, we can compare it to another franchise. We can compare it to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which I lovingly call the MCU, a term that has caught on. And why is it caught on? Because it's true. And you know who announced it? Kevin Feige. So that's in the building. That is their partner. That is a subsidiary of the parent company. And what did the parent company recently get caught saying? What did a major executive, LaToya Revenue, what did she get caught saying when they decided to get political and fight the state of Florida over the parental rights bill? What did she say? She said, our not so secret gay agenda. I just really don't know how that can't be perceived as absolute activism. And if you don't think that's happening at Lucasfilm, just go to their whiteboard for the story group. Diversity was so important to them, and they had to put it up there twice, right up there with dinosaurs. And what have we gotten? A lot of diversity, and we got some dinosaurs. If you saw Mandalorian season 3, and you know what it all had in common? It sucked. So I'm going to line it up again. I could have said a lot more, but I'm limited on time. I apologize, but thank you. Go Legal Mindset.
All right. We'll start with Sam. Sam, I want to say, first of all, I appreciate your candor with the court. It's a duty of an attorney, especially, or three duties. One is to alcoholism, then the other one is to candor with our clients, and of course the court. But your candor, your true candor, that indeed, Star Wars is about communism, and that's very, very, very true. And that intersectionality, communism, socialism, these things do go hand in hand, right? These things do go hand in hand. And certainly at Lucasfilm, you support communism, intersexuality, feminism, or really anything you can slap an ism on and throw it
any
into a
decent person
community
would.
support group. Yes, of course, and not, of course, a far right activist like Mr. Buechler. Now, one thing I will say is that unfortunately for you at Lucasfilm, all of this sucking on the teat of your communist overlords, unfortunately, has failed. Because not only did your superiors in Beijing, to the north over here, fail to turn out, because apparently hiding hiding his blackness, was not enough to bring box office numbers in Shanghai. No, that was not enough. But indeed, the folks at home, the fifth column back at home, did not show up for the film, because the storytelling itself was ruined by the activism and the clear preference for intersectionality and communism within the film. And to pivot into the point for Mr. Ozark, all of the films that were brought up by Mr. Ozark, which, by the way, fantastic films. Requiem for a Dream, one of my favorite films, actually.
Great movie.
Great movies, all of them, Mr. Ozark. But you make a fair point. This was a different era. And I dare say, Mr. Ogre, I dare not label you as a boomer, perhaps your silent generation. I respect your service. That being said, these movies were in an era in which you could intertwine a political message with a story, but make yourself still be immersed in that story. Look no further than what you mentioned, but also other things like, for example, Japanese anime, which is still popular to this day because it continues to incorporate many of these messages: environmentalism, anti-war, right? Princess Mononoke, if people know that, Nausicaa, right? But it is not ruined by the experience, because it is not pervaded by a sick, twisted sense of intersexuality which pervades storytelling, gender, race, time, and pure logic. And last but not least, the only films that are on trial here today is Star Wars, for the death and failure of Star Wars. We're not here to litigate Mad Max. We're not here to litigate other franchises or stories. This is about why Star Wars is dead. And there's no other reason but the activism of Lucasfilm.
I can also add real quick that there is anti-capitalist messaging, and we have to divide the Lucasfilm that George Lucas owned and Disney Star Wars, because Star Wars is dead. But there is anti-capitalist messaging in The Last Jedi. There is an anti-capitalist message in the trailer for Indiana Jones 5 and the Dial of Dysentery. So, and you would be hard pressed to convince me that anybody is pro-capitalist in the Lucasfilm story group. I'd love to hear it. I know we're also just talking about Star Wars, but apparently thinking a concentration camp in China only takes you so far.
And Your Honor, if I may correct the record, it was Finn, not Poe. I do stand corrected on the person they tried to erase the blackness of. So please correct the court record. Have the reporter correct that.
Shrink them.
Absolutely, we can correct it.
Thank you.
And on the defense, any more cross-examination? I noticed that Mr. Blackwood is very busy drawing members of the defense and prosecution today.
Yeah. I'd actually like to support my fellow defense member and rebut Mr. Andrews' defense, is that the anti-capitalism messaging wasn't just something that Disney brought up. It was actually also in Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, with their I forget the character's name, but he was claiming to be just a capitalist when being a traitor against Indiana Jones. So, I mean,
Certainly.
and that was in 2012, before Lucas sold Lucasfilm to Disney. So, if you want to say that George Lucas has no political leanings or political points of view. I think that would just be at minimum.
Who said that?
Your Honor, I'd like to object. This is res judicata. Mr. Lucas is not on trial here. In fact, we have a plea agreement with him that we will not prosecute him any further for his crimes. So we would like to just exclude that. Mr. Lucas is not on trial here, sir.
And besides that was a comic relief character anyway.
Correct.
Hey, George Lucas is the greatest capitalist who's ever lived.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
As does the defense is the defense ending their cross-examination?
Do we get to choose if it ends? I thought that was until the prosecution was done with us.
Well, I'm because we're short on time today. I would like to propose that we move to open debate after a brief break. Mr. Nerdrotic will let us know if he'll be sticking around. We'll have a brief break, and then we'll come back for open debate. No rules, debate it out, hash it out, argue. And I want to hear some of these passionate arguments here. And I will mention that the jury is very active at this time. So there we go. Someone in the chat also from the jury mentioned that an as from heel versus babyface was supposed to be here. There was a miscommunication that I am responsible for. It's my fault. So I hope he'll be joining us on a future episode. There are only 2 left after this, but a brief break. If you need to use the facilities, please feel free to do so. I suggest that you actually leave your chair and actually go to the facility before you take care of your business. So we will reconvene in just a few minutes. Thank you very much.
And for all the movies that we did hear about today, we do know that there are some that have been shelved.
Well, they haven't been shelved. Most things haven't been shelved. Development is a complicated, long-term process. Mm-hmm. Some people, we're dealing with scheduling because obviously really talented people are working. Mm-hmm. So we don't, it's often not a shelving. It's just, is it ready?
Yeah.
Man, you are one pathetic loser.
It was a quiet Wednesday, that May 25. Quiet, that is. Until Star Wars exploded onto the silver screen and changed the course of movie making forever. We all know that story. But fast forward 35 years, when a real empire consumed it, changed it, broke it, woke it. The magic is gone. The myth is gone.
911 operator, what's your emergency? Oh my god, they killed Star Wars!
The new overlords ignored most everything that made it great. They insulted the fans, betrayed the fans, ignored the fans, ignored the canon, and they even ignored serious, coherent story making. And just...
The problem is that making film is an art. Selling film is a business.
Right.
The trouble is that they don't know how to sell films. As a result, they try to make you make films that people will go to without them having to be sold, which is the real key to the problem. And if they weren't so backward and, I mean, they just, if they can't put a film in a theater and have people rush to the door, they're not interested.
When I took over the licensing, I simply said, I'm going to be able to make T-shirts, I'm going to be able to make posters, and I'm going to be able to sell this movie, even though the studio won't.
As a toy seller, Star Wars is unequaled.
My
have about 20, 25, you know.
Which ones?
You know, the main characters like Chewbacca, Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, all of those, you know.
How many of the Star Wars characters do you have at home?
About 10.
About 10? How about you? Do you have them too?
I have 3. I don't have none, really.
You don't have any yet?
I'm planning to get some.
You are? Which ones you want?
All of them.
Star Wars toys have been the top sellers in boys' action toys for 6 years straight.
Some of the toys are action toys. If your child gets one, you may have to take it away with force.
Don't.
Hope you enjoyed that break. We are now moving to open debate for count 9. The charge: maliciously hiring activists within Lucasfilm. It's there is no format to this, and anyone may begin, and we will continue. We will show some of the jury's comments on screen as the proceedings continue.
I'm sorry. Did you want to go over super chats before we do that?
Well, Mr. Beekler's short on time. We will save the super chats until later. We move to open debate. We'll see how long we go with that. Please continue.
I'd like to start with open debate by asking Mr. Beekler some questions about your statements. So when you were saying that Han Solo, like the Disney Star Wars treating Han Solo like a deadbeat dad and an idiot, and Leia being treated like an idiot, how is that exactly activism as opposed to, say, bad storytelling?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I think it's a very good question. But these are supposed to be professional, creative people. Now, I'll agree with your statement earlier that Rian Johnson is a lesser filmmaker. Absolutely. He is a lesser filmmaker. But I don't think that's behind it. For one, it was marketing. They were clickbaiting the public because they wanted to focus on one legacy character per film to try to stretch that out. But to not put Han, Luke, and Leia in a scene together, I can't even think that Jar Jar Abrams or Rian Johnson wouldn't think about that for a moment. And I think what's behind that was trying to prop up their character, Rey. And why did they want this female character to... the only way they can do that inherently is sexism. They have to diminish the male characters. I bypassed the compressor. I mean, you got to be kidding me with that line. So it is their political motivation that feeds these horrific creative decisions. And yeah, you can couple that with some pretty awful writing. I think it's pretty well established that Rian Johnson runs the school of dumb filmmaking to make certain people think they're smart. And Jar Jar Abrams is just an absolute fraud. But to not put them in a scene together, to not make Han Solo heroic. Why do you need to diminish him? Have him regress back to before he was in the beginning of Star Wars. Leave Leia after their son goes to the dark side to some guy named Snoke who ended up just being a clone because somehow Palpatine came back. Yeah. I can't help but think that is a politically motivated decision by intersectional feminism, because we need to make the women look more powerful. And the only way, according to Hollywood, these are not my words, women can look more powerful is by diminishing men and having them act like men.
Mr. Beekler, I appreciate your passion response. However, aside from the name dropping of intersectionality and activism, you still didn't answer my question exactly. How is it activism as opposed to, say, bad storytelling or just bad narrative decisions?
Kathleen Kennedy stated the Force is female, announcing that she's going to be, and this is going to be an intersectional feminist Disney Star Wars, which it has been.
That has been debunked in an earlier trial where that was an actual Nike advertising slogan that was presented at the school that Kathleen Kennedy's kid was going to during a...
Oh, so you're saying the Force isn't female. You're saying they haven't diminished male characters systematically throughout the
I'm
entire
saying that
run
the
of
Force
Disney.
is
Well,
not-
no, and this is the big failing of the defense is they haven't named one positive masculine figure in the entire series.
So-
They can't name one. Tobias Beckett, who he couldn't even name. He couldn't even name the character, and everyone furiously Googled it afterwards, in order to be able to find it. Right?
About
Couldn't
Han
even name
Solo.
one positive masculine character because exactly what you said. They have to emasculate the men in order to rise everybody else up.
Mr. Andrew for Mr. Legal Mindset.
Yes.
How does if we're admitting that these films
Can you no
bad
Mr. Monkey
storytelling.
King, are you conceding that you cannot name one positive masculine non-villain character in all of the
It's
Star Wars?
irrelevant.
It is completely irrelevant because Star Wars is on trial. This is not a trial about your feelings. This is not about a trial about other movies. This is not a trial about employees. It's a trial about Star Wars itself. It's relevant to Star Wars. Anything you have to say outside of Star Wars is completely irrelevant. Right? What happens in a boardroom in a Nike commercial doesn't matter. Nike's a woke corporation which will fail anyways on their own. They're doing a fine job of that on their own. This is about Star Wars and the people who care about Star Wars. Not people who care about Just Do It.
If we already agreed that Star Wars, the Disney Star Wars, is bad storytelling, then your point about having us list an arbitrary character who
arbitrary, a main character, sir, a main character.
You actually said a character, sir.
Yeah,
so
A. You
if we
can't
can
even
have
find
a
A.
stenographer go
You
back,
can't even find A. That's even more pathetic that you can't even find a character.
Arguably the most popular character in Star Wars, Han Solo. So, all right. So we take Han and we make him a bad dad, just like he was in Blade Runner 2049, just like he was in Indiana Jones. Okay, you do it once. Then the next movie, you did the same damn thing to Luke Skywalker. This stops being, well, this is just bad writing. This has to come from somewhere. And we do know that while Rian Johnson took full credit for writing The Last Jedi, he didn't write it by himself. He had a lot of help by the very activist Lucasfilm story group, who has made no secret of their activism and using Star Wars for activism. And we've seen this time and time again. So it stops being an accident at that point. Yeah, it's all circumstantial evidence. But I think I have a lot more circumstantial evidence that the Force is fucking female in Disney Star Wars.
Let's have a
just very quickly, just need to interrupt everyone. We just received a series of super chats. Shocked to see Kathleen Kennedy, who says Star Wars no longer belongs to the toxic little man babies. It belongs to me. I own it. All must bow to me. Star Wars is mine, and I'll destroy it if I want to. Thank you, Miss Kennedy, for your $9.
Case closed, Your Honor.
Let's have a quick hypothetical real quick, because authors write what they know, right? So what's the hardest thing that these writers have gone through? Their dad's leaving. So they left them, and now they're writing about it. It's their real life experience. All they know is bad dads, okay? Bad dads. Why is that political? They're bad dads, okay? They went out to go get cigarettes.
Well, after all this
come
time,
back with.
I truly understand why their fathers left.
I mean, when you look at that face, you're not coming back with a gallon of milk. No, sir. So why is that political? They're writing what they know, right? Answer me that, Mr. Beekler.
Well, I'm sorry they weren't very good kids and their dad left them and they never came back with that pack of cigarettes. But there still are positive male role models out there, and they are very important for men and women. And to diminish these positive male role models deliberately, when you know financially it's a terrible decision, creatively it's a terrible decision, then the only thing you're left to think is these guys are complete drooling window lickers, which I completely agree with. And they tend to fall back on what they know, what you said, which is activism, which is their politics, which they're blinded by, absolutely blinded by. And this goes into the bigger picture of Hollywood and how it absolutely shifted out after 2016 and became part of the Great Fortification.
I will say that Windows
we're talking
tastes
about
good.
Star Wars here.
Windows tastes good. You should try it. Give it a lick or two. It might change your perspective. Okay. Windex, the blue stuff, it's amazing. But that does not pull it out how Star Wars has always been political, and now we just don't agree with what the politics are. That's the only shift.
Well, we're conflating this, by the way, erroneous theory that it's always been political and activism. And activism by the employees, activism by Disney, and they have displayed their activism openly by fighting with an entire state, losing their tax status in Florida, one of the greatest gaffes of a company of all time. And hey, I believe taxation is theft. I'm against it, but I'm just sitting here as an observer going, wow, is this good business? And what is driving this good business? Well, it's ESG, it's DIE, it's intersectionalism, it's Marxist beliefs. That is activism, and they are infiltrating everything. I've always said that the bankers who run everything, they're not the ones who even watch their own shit. I doubt anybody on the board has seen an entire Star Wars movie. I doubt they've read Lord of the Rings or any of the EU books or any Indiana Jones book or any Indiana Jones comics. I doubt they give a crap. Where the activism comes in is through HR, through the mid-level management, and they run with fear. So yes, there is a lot of going along to get along. It's still caused by activism.
And this is amongst a period of time in which they said, Disney as a whole wants to have 50% of their characters be people of color, minorities, be represented, right? They want to do this as a drive, right? This representation drive across Disney properties, Marvel, mainstream Disney, Pixar, Lucasfilm. This is just part of an overall arching plan. So it fits, it's consistent, and it's confessed. I mean, it seems like the defense really has aired more of a confession and tried to put on an affirmative defense rather than actually deny that activism was going on.
See, that's why you're the lawyer.
Yeah.
I wish I had you around.
I'm not that type of lawyer, Gary.
You would have been better. You'd have been better than my dump truck.
I would like to argue that according to Mr. Beekler's account of how Disney needing ESG money and DEI money in order
it's not money that they get. They don't get money. It's part of a credit social score.
Yeah, credit as in a line of credit, like a credit card. Where
they're all in debt. They don't have any money.
It's still money.
They're swimming in debt right now.
They still, because they have to pay back the credit, but the credit is money.
No, it's not. That's not exactly how it works. How it works is it's investment capital. So the investors can pull their capital at any time. It's not a line of credit. So they're not extending a line of credit. They're investing in the company, but they're saying we can pull back and divest in your company if you don't meet these metrics, which is why Disney is number 2. Right. By the rank number 2 in terms of ESG, because BlackRock was very specific about that.
Okay, I stand corrected, Mr. Mindset. But anyway, my point being is, how is that considered activism when it sounds more like the bankers and the investment firms are more of the activists versus, say, the people? If you're being told that you have to put
if you're being told are you making a I was just following orders argument?
I'm making if you're being extorted by investment firms to use in order to gain a line of credit, wouldn't you most likely be compliant to?
If it's
in 1946, we hang those people. So that's all I'm going to say. That's our legal precedent.
I'm making a more of a
the point is that they're not under duress. They have a choice. They can choose to not take that investment money. It's very important. It's not, if it was a line of credit, there might actually be a condition. They can choose to have real investors. They can choose to be invested in by real Americans. In fact, real Americans, for the first time ever, lowest numbers in history, are choosing to voluntarily divest themselves in Disney by not going to their parks. For the first time ever, Magic Kingdom is empty on a holiday weekend. This is because people are divesting because they decided, Disney made a choice. They made a choice in DI, they made a choice in Chinese money over the people of America. And now they're having to deal with that choice.
Aren't the investment firms offering them more money or I should say more capital to invest in their company.
That's what they believe. That's what they believe. I would argue that it is not more money in the long run, particularly when you consider all the sources of income that Disney's missing out on. Let's just talk about Star Wars, because obviously I don't want to get off topic, and the scope here is Star Wars. I won't focus on Marvel or Pixar or anything else. But the merchandise. Let's just talk about the merchandise. How much merchandise has the sequel trilogy sold?
I don't have those official numbers. That's the thing that Lucasfilm would actually have.
Yeah, it probably can't pay a month of my rent.
That's not a fair comparison, because who plays with toys anymore? All right, it's all video games.
Oh no, excuse me, Sam. I believe the toys are played with by the adult children in your law office. I believe that's the people playing.
You would think I have.
I think they did put in an order for some Disney years.
I got it.
I need to interrupt the debate here to mention we have a poll in the chat right now. Who do you think won today's argument, the prosecution or the defense? I would like to note that in all previous 8 counts, the prosecution has won every time. However, the defense has gained ground, and in recent debates, the defense has actually done quite well, nearly 10%. Let's see how the defense does this time. Before we continue the debate, some quick comments from our jury here. Who ordered the defense from Wish, says 200 Watt Studio. Shucksy says the goal of socialism is communism, quoting Lenin. Crunchy Beaver for 10. Yes, where's the crunchy bush nowadays? All this totally shaved stuff is borderline creepy, in my opinion. Also, didn't Kathleen Kennedy say she didn't want the 50-year-old fans? 200 Watt Studio goes on for 2. Objection, the Road Warrior DVD is the dubbed version. Interesting.
Is that Mad Max or Road Warrior? I know they dubbed Mad Max.
They dubbed Mad Max, yes, with American accents. Very unusual. Grumpy Dad reacts for 5. All these examples were warnings of potential futures or outcomes. Star Wars activism is about trying to popularize socialist ideals. Angry Eddie TV for 2. It's pronounced Ruined Johnson. I rest my case. Ministry of Wrongthink for 999. The difference between political messaging in the original trilogy versus the sequels is the generic anti-war / oppression theme was meant to connect with fans, whereas the messages in the sequels are divisive. There you are. Nick Brown for 999. Your Honor, I'm inclined to agree with the distinguished gentleman from Texas and the coiner of the term MCU. Kathleen Kennedy is an activist, and we must believe her when she says the force is female. I am unbiased. There you are. The Smoking Patriot for 1999. Name one scene where the men were brave and heroic in the sequel trilogy and praised for it. Finn simps, Poe is chastised, Han is deadbeat, and Luke is pathetic, all while the women are strong and can never do wrong. Crunchy Beaver for 10. Mao and Stalin killed roughly 10 times what Adolf did. They starved their own people for the benefit of the state. That's what we really want, isn't it? I guess Thanos is a hero.
Thanos is right.
John Orchard for 5. The charge should be changed to negligent hiring instead of malicious hiring. Negligent hiring is a real civil law cause of action. Great stream. Thank you, John. Question for George. Would you rather give Jar Jar a reach around or Phoebe Waller-Bridge a tickle? George or Lucas?
I'm not going to respect that question. I reject the whole question in its entirety. That's just silly. And Jar Jar's people don't need a reach around.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Ministry of Wrongthink for 999. Heard the best thing ever on WDW Pros the other day. What's the fastest way to make a multi-million-dollar company? Give Kathleen Kennedy a multi-billion-dollar company. Interesting comment. I wish Kathleen Kennedy was still here to hear that. I believe Kathleen Kennedy will be on the final episode of this show, which is July 26th. Will be the final episode of Critics Court at a different time. It'll be in the evening. We will go through every single count. We will also go to sentencing. And in addition, members of the jury will choose the next franchise that will appear in Critics Court. we will make a list of the franchises, and the jury will decide. So there you go. Gregory Lieber for 5. Original trilogy and prequel trilogy politics were woven into the story. Disney broke the established continuity and characters in order to be political. That is the issue. Shabraham Lincoln for 1999. There's a difference between films having messages and tilting one's entire company towards one political direction and actively antagonizing anyone who disagrees with said messaging. Disney Lucasfilm is firmly in the latter.
Your Honor, that was Slabraham Lincoln, not Shabraham.
Slabraham Lincoln. What did I say? I'm sorry.
You said Shabraham Lincoln.
Shabraham. I need to get where Legal Mindset is in terms of the alcohol content there. Res Judicata is my favorite EU character. Well, there you are. And super sticker from Pitlin44. Thank you for that. Eric Henson. I can see why the dads left JJ, Ryan, and JJ. Thank you, 200 Watt Studio. Radioactive for 10. Defense is struggling and needs help. Chewbacca is a Wookiee from Kashyyyk living on Endor. This makes no sense. If this makes no sense, you must acquit Disney Soy Wars. Defense res. And the Beast, 808 for 2. Sam is an undercover prosecution operative.
We might have operatives. You never know.
Eric Henson for 2. I want Sam on the winning side for the next trial. And does Mr. Ing prefer Mick Jagger or Tom Cruise?
Tom Cruise.
Polysemia asks. Oh, Kathleen Kennedy is back. For 5, Star Wars was just a simple pump and dump for me to acquire. George fell for it like a little boy looking for a lollipop. Mr. Lucas, any comments on Ms. Kennedy's comments?
That's neither here nor there. Look, Kathy Kennedy was a great asset to the early Spielberg projects. She made great coffee, and she was very helpful in scheduling things. So I'm not going to badmouth her in these proceedings.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. 200 Watt Studio for 2. Lucasfilm sold hundreds of Rose Tico figures.
Yeah, to one person.
David March for 5. Thanos rhymes with Davos. I'm glad my record of 8% was not beaten. We'll find out soon. Angry Eddie TV, KK, that's a real dusty clam you got there. Not sure what you're talking about.
That is.
Not sure what you're talking
That's
about.
nasty.
For $2, we thank you for that.
Yes. Feeling Dangerous 113 for 5. I'm going to movies, gotta hop off, not watching that Lucasfilm trash, but the Sound of Freedom. Adios. Catch the rest later. And Boat Night for 2. Funny coming in here to a Star Wars soap ad. And ESG is the dark side, and like the dark side, once you start down the dark path, forever will it dominate your destiny, says Darius White for 5. And Jens Anderson of the Tari Threat Level 1 has been a member for 10 months, says guilty down with Disney Plus. Hail Gary, P.S. Watch Stargate.
I am.
Any final comments from members of the prosecution and defense before we finalize our poll to see who won?
Well, I got to go, but how long are we going?
We will be done before the top of the hour. Another 13 minutes.
Man, I'll just stay. Screw it.
Okay. Any other final remarks from anyone? Defense, Mr. Lucas, Mr. Mindset, final comments.
I have a final comment. There's a complaint throughout this case how the original trilogy members were not together during the sequel trilogy. And I have Marvel Comic 93 of Star Wars. And when I went back and I looked at the comics, you see that in these really neat stories, like here in the Marvel comic, that the original trilogy members are together in these stories quite a bit. So I would ask Mr. Beekler, do you think that throughout the years, so many times we saw the original trilogy members together, do you think there was a chance to do something different? I know that you said that they wanted to slow roll them out, but would you entertain this at all, that we had them together in so many stories? I'm just curious in your response.
Well, not everybody's read the comics. They're really good. Highly recommend them. But when you go through the trouble of signing Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, getting him back to a role he just didn't want to get back to, and getting Leia back in there. Why am I blanking on her name? Jesus Christ.
Carrie Fisher.
Carrie Fisher.
Dude, having stroke is just bad for you. Getting them under contract and then not putting them in a scene together, and like that's just the basic thing. They should have been in all 3 movies together all the time, or maybe split up for one movie and then back together in the 3rd movie. But they couldn't even put them in a scene together. Have we seen them too much? No. Why did The Force Awakens do so well? It was on the promise that you're going to see Han, Luke, and Leia again. And you saw a little bit of Leia when Carrie Fisher could act. You saw Han Solo kind of fucking lazy his way through that horribly written role. And Mark Hamill didn't say a damn thing until the end. That is one of the worst creative decisions in the history of Hollywood. There is no excuse for that other than money, politics, corporate politics, and yes, horrible decision-making by a terrible leader. And
Objection.
What do you think about, Bruce, real quick, Carrie Fisher died, Gary, and don't you think that kind of changed their plans? And Harrison Ford had been lobbying for 30 years behind the scenes for them to kill Han Solo. So don't you think
Harrison
if
Ford.
we didn't see
Screw Harrison Ford. He doesn't get to make that decision.
He has influence. I'm just saying. Go ahead.
Over his character. And George didn't want that. They just had to. And if George was running Disney Star Wars or Star Wars at the time, I don't think he would have let him do that. George, you're here. Would you have let him kill Han Solo?
Not for the amount of money we were paying him.
There you go.
Objection.
Wait, George, you would have never killed Han Solo? Wait, George, one more question. George, would you have ever killed Han Solo? Ever? At what point did you kill him?
Look, he lobbied to be killed off in Return of the Jedi, and I thought that was a bad idea then, and I think it was a bad idea later on.
Well, you had to have thought in your mind coming up. Did you ever foresee an end? What was your end for Han Solo's story, George?
Well, again, I'm not going to share that unless I'm paid to share it, because that's a valid story idea. Everyone can't talk at the same time. That's how this works badly.
Is that how it works?
It does.
No idea for the ending. Perhaps for the right price, we will find out what the actual.
All I can say is that the story that I was developing had the main characters from the original trilogy together, having an adventure, and then they turn it over to the young people.
Fair enough.
So,
thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. We are getting close to ending our poll, so we can see who won today's debate. Ms. P. Coffee, did you highlight the comments so we can display it on screen for everyone to see? Give her a moment here. Any other also final thoughts before we'll be wrapping up and then the show in the next under 10 minutes here. I guess I'll go to some chat questions and comments. Kathleen Kennedy Coffee, it will woke you up, says Radioactive. Emily Kruger for 5. The Family Guy Star Wars specials were more like Star Wars than the Star Wars sequel trilogy. Interesting. And Sci-Fi is Life for 5. If you guys do Doctor Who for the next case, I'll be there. We are making a very short list of possible cases of other franchises that have been murdered by their corporate overlords. Doctor Who is on the list. Marvel is on the list. Star Trek is on the list. You will vote the night of the our final episode of the show when we're going to see who won. We're going to see the counts. You will be able to decide what the next case will be. Butter Biscuit 92 for 5. This has been awesome and fun. Thanks helping get through work. Screw Disney Star Wars. Well, thank you for that. And the final results of the poll from the members of the jury, I'll say, Mr. Ng, I think you had a message to the more than 1,700 members of the jury today. You had a message for them.
Yes. Which one was that again?
Like that?
Yeah, that's right. I like that. Like that smash button. And subscribe away. We are just over 85,000 subscribers, working our way to 169,000.
The goal is 169,000 subscribers, according to Mr. Ing. Thank you, Mr.
Thanks
Ing.
to you, we are halfway there.
There you are. Now the results of the poll today. Who do you think won the argument? Prosecution 93%, defense 6%. That's with 882 votes from the members of our jury. Well, there you are. There is a chance. Well, that might be one of the best prosecution wins I think we've seen in all 9 counts. Quick from 200 Watt Studio says Kirk and Solo both died on a bridge. Only one did it heroically.
Oh.
Well, there you are. And that's going to end it for us
They both
today.
suck, to be honest with you.
That's going to end it for us today. Would anyone like to get any plugs out as we look at our court sketch artists? Let's go through some of the drawings that Mr. Blackwood has done today. Where can people find all of you on the socials and or your YouTube channels? Please plug those.
Is that me?
Starting with Willie Monkey King or
sure.
Those my intestines, by the way, or
It looks like you're in a tauntaun. You're coming
there
out
we
of a
go. Okay.
tauntaun.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there it is.
You can find me at Willie the Monkey King's Music, where I post original music and even an occasional cover, or soon to be occasional cover. That's it.
Is that Leslie Headland and Ryan Johnson? Oh my God. I know it's okay. Yeah, there you go. That's awesome.
Oh my God, that's so good.
That's quite disturbing.
Leslie Headland. Oh, God.
Oh, I see. I see what you did there. That's funny. I'm one of those little bird creatures. That's funny. Oh no, that's the other guy. There we go. That's better.
All right, real quick around the horn, your channels, Matt.
You can find me at Ozark Matt on Twitter at Ozark Matt.
Great. Andrew.
Legal Mindset is my main channel, legalmindset.locals.com. My Asia channels Go East, and I have a new podcast, Bangkok Bros, if you want to see me live in studio.
Fantastic. Sam.
Subscribe to Dan Bask.
Oh, no.
Wow. Shots fired.
Wow.
I was going to compliment you, Defense, but screw you, buddy.
Hey,
Mr.
Hail
Beaker.
ISOM too.
Hail ISOM too.
Oh no, that's me. That's me. I think. Yeah. Nice.
There you go.
Defense, it was great talking to you. You guys, you plucky little guys, you got 6%. That's pretty good. That's more than I thought you were going to get. So well done. Well done. Especially with Legal Mindset here. By the way, we got to get you on FNT, dude.
Yeah. Just hit me up. You got my info.
Your Honor, for the record, Mr. Beekler's policy at his comic book store did allow patrons to visit and use his restroom until a certain incident. So I just wanted to put that on the record. Mr. Beekler can explain that later, but
we'll probably have to explain that another day. It was for damn good reason. Okay. Yeah, it's like if some poor pregnant woman comes in and needs to use the bathroom, I let her use the bathroom. All right, but it's a horrible story. Hey, surprisingly enough, my next video will be out tomorrow, and it's about Disney. So I know this might shock a few people. I haven't made enough Disney videos, but that'll be out tomorrow. I normally am on Hump Day. I'm on the Nooner with Chris Gore. We won't be around next week either. Maybe we'll do like a special edition or something like that because we'll be at Comic-Con. I'm very excited about that. But this was tons of fun. Thanks for inviting me, everybody. Subscribe to Film Threat and not Dan Bask.
Mr. Beekler, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Looking forward to hanging out with you next week in San Diego. And to the jury, thank you for your time and your attendance. I also need to thank our mods here taking care of us today. Lord Thoth, Mexican Ironman, Gritterin Masters, Ms. Peak Coffee, our intrepid producer, Glenn Brown. I want to thank my colleague, Alan Ing. Always fun to hang out with Alan. Alan's face just makes me laugh. That's all I can say. And I will see you all next week. We have the jury special. It looks like we will be pre-recording that. If you're a member of the channel, we're pre-recording it Sunday afternoon, and then we will run it on Wednesday for everyone to see. But if you're a member of the channel, you can actually participate on the live stream with Alan, myself, and we have a special guest, Judicator, who will be there. Until then, see you at Comic-Con and July 26th, final episode. And Alan, take us out.
Let's get out of here.